In this discussion, we're tackling a common fear, a phobia that so many people experience, from teenagers to retirees. A phobia reported across multiple studies every year as one of, if not the top phobia, and it's called glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking. TikTok, I'm trying to be cool like you millennials, right? Hashtag public speaking has over 2.2 billion views. There are hundreds of thousands of videos and creators addressing the common questions around nervousness before speaking, brain fade or a brain fart, and absolutely just feeling anxious about getting up and speaking in public.
Yeah. And I'm always hesitant to speak into this too definitively because in a sense, it's not something that I've had to hugely wrestle through. The nerves are there and they're there, for me, they're there when things are in an unfamiliar context. So when I'm speaking, for instance, at global events and there'll be the teleprompter vibe and you've sent through your script 2 months in advance and it's word perfect and that you cannot deviate because they've got 8 or 10 translators at the back of the room. That makes me nervous. Because it's no longer a presentation. You're essentially delivering a script. It's a monologue. And typically you've also got the large group format. So you've got bright lights. You can't see anyone. It's a very artificial environment. In fact, what's interesting about those really large stages, and if anyone who hasn't done it before, the interesting thing is at the moment you get off stage, there's what I've always found, this huge energy lull. It's almost depressive. It's this funny sort of thing. You go from like massive adrenaline focused on this moment. There's no feedback because you can't see anyone. You know they're sort of there. And you get off stage and you have this real moment of like, did that go okay? Did I stuff that up?
For anyone listening, if you haven't had that moment, it's what happened to us when we first went online and you do a presentation or a meeting online. Yep. It's right, okay, it's right at 11 o'clock. We've got our next meeting, bang, close. Yep. And there's no wrap up. Around this time last year, I was in America. This time of year is the big sales conference, the kickoffs, they call them, MJ. And I did one in Vegas. 11,000 people, and you're on the stage, it's big lights, big intro, big everything, and you can't see anything. And as I didn't have the scripted teleprompter, I still had a 30-minute window, and I find 30 minutes much harder than a day.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But then you come off stage and then the next person's on and you're like, how'd I go? Like, did they connect? So that is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And trying to figure out for you, what's going to give you that sense of, I went okay. Because you need to, we've all got that need to know that we went well.
Oh, it's one of our basic drivers of fitting in and feedback and belonging to a tribe. Now, if anyone's listening to this and going, oh, they're two speakers, they're just going to go down a pathway of here's how you speak on global stages. Yeah, we'll cover some of that, but we'll look at speaking on 3 levels. One is entry level. You've been asked to speak at a wedding, at an offsite, at a mate's bucks party, hens party, and you are so freaking nervous. We'll give some people tips around that. I think a lot of our audience it's corporate and sports performance slanted. People will be presenting, and I'll call that a workshop. You've got a conference, so the Mighty Manly Seagulls. Thursday, we've got a conference. A bunch of our coaches will deliver a 30-minute presentation. And I know for some people that causes a lot of anxiety. So some tips around that. And then those people that call this a profession will give some tips around that as well. But back to the whole thing around fear of public speaking. I'm a young guy, full head of hair. I'm going back a while, and I see you on stage and you rip in and I just go, oh, Mr. McQueen, see how young I am, Mr. McQueen, I couldn't think of anything worse than speaking in public. Help me, wise one.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, the first thing is trace it back to what's the actual fear. So typically it's not getting up and talking because we talk every day to groups of 2, 3, 4, 5 people in our lounge rooms, in the lunchroom at work. Like speaking publicly is actually not a big deal. What are we afraid of? Public humiliation, not public speaking, or public shame, not public speaking. It's that fear of what if I get up and people don't like me, or if I stuff it up and people laugh, or they think less of me because I didn't do what I was expected to do, or we have a sense of what a public speaker is meant to be. And so I would say when you feel nervous, like inadequacy, that I can't do it, firstly, what's the picture you've got in your mind of what doing it looks like? Because probably the doing it, that model may not be what your ideal model is. So I'm not a rah-rah speaker. I'm not big energy. I'm very calm on stage. I'm just like this. And so I remember feeling when I started off early on as a young punk, I was 22 when I started speaking on the circuit, that I had to be like, and then you fill in the blanks, you had to be like Lisa McGuinness Smith, or you had to be like David Penglace, or you had to be like Alan Weiss over in the US, like these speakers who were just top of the game. But that's not me. That's not my vibe.
Be you.
Like you have to be you. You have to be a slightly elevated version of you. So when I'm on stage, I'm still calm, but I'm intentional. There's intentional energy. So it's not just getting up and having a chat, because that dishonors your audience. You are there to deliver something, but it's almost like you're just turning up the volume on you a couple of clicks.
I like that. A slightly elevated
just be you.
version of you.
Like truly. Because I feel like the moment you get up there and you're trying to be that archetype, whatever the archetype is, firstly, it's exhausting because you're projecting a lot trying to be that. But also, from an audience perspective, it's discordant. It doesn't work. Doesn't seem right. So I think starting with that, but also realizing that anytime there's nervousness, and this is going to sound so simplistic, but it is so fundamentally true. When you're nervous, it's because you're focused on you. Like if you're standing on stage and you're anxious, unless there's a clinical anxiety dynamic playing out here, what's actually going on is it's all focused on you. You know, will I do an okay job? Will they like me? All the rest of it. Will I remember all my points? The moment that focus shifts to how am I adding value? How am I being helpful? How are people going to find this useful? As opposed to will they like me and will they like my content? Like the nerves won't entirely disappear, but when it's about the audience, it's amazing how that shifts the entire vibe. The other thing I remembered too is that, like the David Brent comment from The Office, just to be a chilled out entertainer.
Some of you seem to have got off on the wrong foot with me. Yeah, I don't think, you didn't like some of the jokes I told earlier. You've got to chill out, yeah? Trust me, this is what I do. All right? You will never work in a place like this again. This is brilliant. Fact. Yeah? And you'll never have another boss like me, someone who's basically a chilled out entertainer. Yeah?
There's something about that, truly.
I play clips of that when I'm working with coaches about presenting to show what not to. I love the bit, the chilled out presenter, but when he comes in and he plays Tina Turner,
so
you're simply
awkward.
the best.
So awkward.
Can I just go back to two things you said? A slightly elevated version of you. And you want to be a little bit nervous. So for anyone listening to this, my MJ's not saying you go up totally chilled and you're almost, comatose. You've got an elevated pulse, elevated heart rate. So you have the physiological shift, the psychological shift. We'll talk about that as well. But you're still you. Yeah. The second thing I just want to double click on. I didn't tell you this. We gave you a rough outline, but we're going to have a nice natural chat rather than, Michael, question number 3. No, you got to answer number 3, mate. Come back.
Yep.
There are 4 main reasons why people are shit scared. This is the technical term of speaking in public. Number 1 is their physiology. They don't know how to control the nerves.
Yeah.
And the nerves control them rather than controlling the nerves. 2 is belief systems or schema. They've seen someone or they've had a bad experience. Often goes back to years and years. They stood up as a kid.
Yeah.
Something happened. And then they draw back on that decades and decades later. 3, and thank goodness we've got MJ in the house, it's skills and ability. It's totally a learnable skill. To speak properer and betterer. And 4, it's context specific. So it's understanding circumstances, specific situations. I think 4 is very domain specific. So let's go physiology, belief system, skills and ability. Totally trainable.
Yeah, totally trainable. And also knowing what your sweet spot is. So my sweet spot is not boardroom. If I've got 8 people sitting around a room, that's when I will be nervous.
Really?
Because it changes the whole vibe. You don't have energy in the room. To me, good presenting is a dance. You lean in and you lean out and you engage them and they laugh and they respond and they share things and you feed off that energy, which is why online presenting is so difficult. You get so little of that. In a small group, you don't have that energy in the room. Like you've got 8 people. If it can feel like the Spanish Inquisition, like anything over 40, you start getting that dynamic of like there's energy in the group, there's a momentum, and it's a bit more of a performance. Once you get past 300, you can't see the eyeballs. Often you've got IMAG screens with the video of you up live, and then it changes again. But that sweet spot for me, I love the middle range. Really small makes me nervous, typically.
Do you do much one-on-one coaching?
Almost none. Yeah.
I look at an executive room or a boardroom like group coaching.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And hey, Gary, at the start, you do some onboarding, and I've learned this. I've got to call out Anthony Seibold, coach of the Mighty Manly Seagulls. I've learned a lot working with Seibs the past 18 months. Before presentations, he'll flag. So he'll go and talk to me. Hey, Maisie, at this moment, can you talk about this? So he lets you know a little bit before. So I'll use that flag before. Hey, Gary, what do you want to get out of today? Because if they're thinking, who's this fucking idiot come in here with his shiny head and tight T-shirts? And I could be talking about both of us.
It's true.
Gary tells me he is really conscious about stepping up to the next level, but maybe he doesn't have the confidence. Bang, you put that in your notebook.
Yep.
Marie, what are you wanting to get out today? So it's that coffee conversation at the start if they haven't given you access to all of it. Yeah. And then you have a guided conversation. So the shift I made a number of years ago, because I stuffed up a few boardroom presentations thinking I had to be jazz hands, big presentation, and I didn't meet the energy. Yeah. It's more like a group facilitation and periodically pick up and then drop back.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, now that you say that, it's probably what I've learned to do, but it's not a sweet spot for me. What I also find with the small groups, it's essential to go around and every single person shake of the hands, touch on the shoulder, what's your name? And then at the front, I've always got like a little piece of paper and I try and draw a grid of the room and have their names, because knowing people's names makes a massive difference. And I can't hold that much in my head when I'm also trying to remember where I'm going with the session or the content. But I do try that works really well. Once you get past 10 to 12 people, unless you've got those like superhuman skills of remembering like 30 people's names in a room, I can't do that. But I can do a small group. I think names really help.
They make a massive difference. Yeah. And Ange now knows my process and she copies me. Ange, who I run Strive Stronger with, but the first time she came to an executive presentation, and I do exactly what you do. It's so funny comparing notes, because I know there's a lot that we do similar, but there's a lot we do different. And I've been looking forward to this because to tap in as part, for our audience, part for me, and a nice mix in between. But I'll draw a grid and I'll put where people are sitting, Michael.
Yes,
and I'll draw some glasses. I have a few little cues, or I'll have a moustache. So then I can do recall. And then I find if I do it once or twice, so I go, Michael, you said you want to do more about stepping up. Wizard, you said you want to learn more about death metal music and bringing that into your presentations because you're a bogan who works as an agent. So you then bringing that in, I find if I recall once or twice, I can put it away. Half a day later, I can then go back and I'll remember. When I go back a month later, unless they're sitting in the same spot and I have that, I reckon I get about 50% to 2/3.
Yes. Yeah. It's annoying when you got a 2-day thing and then they move seats or just change clothes. Yeah. Like I had them all down pat yesterday. But I think those little things make a big difference. So knowing exactly what your sweet spot is. And I think too, realizing you don't have to tick all the boxes, particularly if you're in that level of speaker we talked about. You've just been asked to MC a friend's wedding. That sense that you, in that job, you don't need to be the funniest person in the room. Like your job is to support what's happening around you, to facilitate that, not to be the star of the show. And so if you've got that feeling you've got to be like this amazing stand-up comedian, then firstly it's putting a lot of pressure on you, because if you don't do this a lot, stand-up comedians typically, if you watch a stand-up set, they've only changed 3 to 5% of that set from the last show.
Have you ever done stand-up?
Never, but I think it would be interesting, but terrifying. I mean, I'd be nervous doing that for sure.
I just joined KPMG, so we're talking 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
And I went and did a 4-week course.
What was it
ended with up on stage at Star City doing a set.
What's the vibe?
I didn't finish it because I did the first night and I was petrified. And I got up and I did it. Everyone had to get up and do 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I froze and I did everything I don't do when I speak.
Interesting.
And I, sporting term, took the gas, was insular, did a couple of jokes.
Wow. Wow.
I didn't go back. So on my bucket list is at some stage, soonish, is to go back and do it. Not because I want to be funny. Like I'm like you, I'll build context-specific humour in. You don't have to be a comedian and make them the hero. Dougie Malouf, God bless his soul.
Yeah.
Make the audience funny, not you, young fella.
Yep.
But I've got unfinished business. Maybe we'll go and do it together.
It's interesting. I've never done it, but I know a lot of speakers who have, and they'll talk about it being a very different skill to do stand-up, but I'm sure there are transferable skills. It'd be like doing improv. I think doing improv, or even I sometimes wonder if I should do movement. Like I'd love to go and do a course in movement or dance, because I often don't feel like I'm great at using my body in big arenas. Because like the big arena, you've got to be larger than life, and I'm not. I'm actually fairly contained and understated in my physicality, but I'm always like, what can you do that's way outside your comfort zone just to build some of those skills?
I'm Italian the way I present. Born in Wagga, grew up in Dubbo, but I've been told I look like an Italian presenter. So when I'm told to fill up the space, I don't have a problem with that. So the anxiety, the nerves, a lot of it is so controllable.
Yeah.
You can control your physiology. You can control your belief systems by having different models.
Yep.
And you can learn some skills and ability. So the art of presenting, number 2, and let's look at that model I said at the start. If you're just starting and you've got a presentation coming up and you are petrified, listen in. If you're doing workshops and it's part of your job, either paid or part of delivering, sales people are presenters, listen in, and those people we call our peers or our homies in the corporate speaking world, definitely listen in. So the 3 areas I'd like to cover on the art of presenting. 1 is how to prepare your content and stories. 2, how you prepare your body and your brain. And 3, how to prepare your props. So I've divided that very specifically. Now there's a bias, a cognitive bias on this, MJ. That's how I prepare my presentations.
Yeah, great.
I start with a blank sheet of paper. And then I'll write down who's the audience, what's the message, what do I want to achieve, and I'll map it out. And this has done the head in on some of my staff. They're on board now because what most people do is they start, especially with a corporate background, let's put a slide deck together. How many slides have you got? There's 50. All right, let's cut it back to 48. And they're the presentations that feels like it's dun, 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 boring as batshit, no story, no energy. And that middle bit I can't help, but that's state management, body and brain. So 1, content and stories. 2, your body and brain. 3, props. So how do you prepare a presentation?
So it depends if it's a content where it's iterative. So if I've got maybe 60% of the presentation I've done before and I'm just adding the 40%. So if I'm doing that, for instance, then it's a case of knowing exactly my flow. So I use notes sometimes, but often I use my slide deck as my note because it gives me a visual sense. I'm very visual. So a visual sense of how much content I've got. So I want to avoid too many words. So most of my slides, if you look at my slide deck, and often, clients will say, can you send your slides through to send to all the delegates after? So I'm like, you can, but it's going to be of very little use. Most of it's high-res images, a couple of videos, very little content.
Your slides.
Yeah, thanks.
They're pretty.
Yeah, well, I just try and make them really simple. So I use a lot of high-res images with a couple of branding watermarks. So my logo, my website pasted over the image.
Do you do that on every slide?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Only because increasingly when people are taking notes, they're not writing notes down, they're taking a photo of the slides. So they're holding their phone up. So if I give them something that's memeable, essentially, they want to take a photo of my slides, it's not going to have just the content, it's going to have my website and my name. Because even if you're a great speaker, at the end of the day, you walk away and I listened to 5 people today at a conference. I can't remember the third speaker's name.
Guy that spoke about that stuff.
Correct.
Really good looking bloke, buffed, up there, funny. Don't think he's done improv. Written 10 books. Maury?
Maury? That'll do. Something like that.
Mal.
But people don't remember. And so like having those little elements really helps. So if it's iterative and I've just got, like, for instance, I've got a slide deck I'm putting together for tomorrow for an event. 60% of it I've done before. 40% is either stuff that's happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks and I need to update new trends, new case studies, new data, or just stuff that's specifically for that client. So I'll actually start with a slide deck in that point and I'll paste things in around that. If it's a new presentation, that is pretty much written out. So I'm not someone who does the mind map thing. I'm visual, but not in that way.
So you'll write the words out?
Yeah.
Big one.
Not always scripted. For some things I'll script. So for me, the biggest things are transitions. Transitioning between ideas, that's when you derail your presentation. So you can know your content well, but if you know it in modules, but don't know the transitions to get from here to there,
let's pretend I have no idea what you're talking about because I think this is one of those ones that's really important.
Okay, yeah.
Someone who's listening to this, it's hearing a different language at the moment.
Good.
Explain transition in normal language.
Okay, so let's say I've started off and I've talked about, so look, one of the points I'll talk about from a trend perspective is I'll talk about thinking revolution, not evolution. And so I'll set that up as an idea and I'll say, it's vitally important that we don't just think about innovation as evolutionary change because continuous improvement is important, but it's not enough in a time of rapid change. So I set that up as a content piece. And then I want to transition into something that gives it social cred or social proof. Because you've still got people going, but no, we always talk about innovation as evolution. So I don't know. I don't know if I believe you. So my transition then into the next piece is a quote from Oren Harari, who used to be the head of the business faculty at San Francisco University. His quote, this is great. Quotes are so efficient.
In your book.
Yeah, super efficient because a quote means if it's someone that either they know or they feel like they should know because of the title or role, they'll go, okay, well, I'll listen to it because of the person. And now I don't need to be the one that is presenting the idea and has to back it up.
I'm just going to jump in again. For someone who's just getting started, because this is invaluable. Where were you when I started speaking? Where were you? You were probably in primary school. That's where you were.
Yeah. When did you start? You said you were personal training and then moved into speaking. When was that?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the bomb in a moment so we don't lose flow. I started speaking at school and then as a coach, but it was in Hobart, 21, 22, I started a personal training business. But then I didn't really get into keynotes until late 20s, early 30s. We'll come back to that because I thought I was ready much sooner than I was. Right. But I really do wish I'd had this because I just got up and spoke and some bad some were okay, and then eventually after 10 years, it's survival of the fittest. But that power of a quote, like that just is, it's magic. So if anyone's listening to this going, does it really work? Yes.
Yeah, it does work. And what I would say now, the thing I've noticed changed in the last 5 or 6 years is you've got to have balance in your quotes of gender and background. And it is hard because typically there's a lot of great quotes from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, mostly white blokes. And so you want to try and steer clear of that because it will derail, even if the quote is a great quote and it makes your point perfectly. If you've just had a whole lot of white dudes in a row being quoted, you've got at least 30% of your audience who are now sitting there and they're going, this guy isn't relevant for me, or he's someone who doesn't understand me, or like they're not thinking about the content anymore. I think
it's higher than 30% because so many more people are aware of that and work in HR, people, group roles. Different ages, different sexual preferences. I am very attuned to this because at KPMG, I had no idea the unconscious bias I had. All my slides were fit white blokes. Most of my stories were about sport. And I was told, Andrew, you are not diverse. I'd be like, one of my best mates, I grew up with Indigenous friends. So I look now, my 2 eldest kids, their mum's Danish. Tony, my partner's Lebanese. So my friends call me United Nations. So I've got friends eclectic from all around the world. I am in no way racist. I love diversity. But I trained so much on what was for me. It was a real awakening. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Diversity, diversity, diversity.
I think it really helps your credibility, and it also then means that you're engaging everyone, you're including everyone, and it forces you to not just fall into the implicit biases we've all got of the people that we gravitate toward because they look like us and they are like us.
So here's one for you. You're talking about the Stoics.
Yeah.
Who would you quote? Who would you bring in there for some diversity? Because all the Stoics are white men.
It's a great question. So old quotes are tricky to find. There's a couple of great lecturers at the moment. So Zoe Chance at Yale is one of those. And she's young, female, just a brilliant thinker. So I try and quote her where I can. There's also a fantastic, I'm trying to think of her name now, a great peace mediator. Diane Musho-Hamilton's her name. And she's an older person, but with beautiful wisdom. But she's not super well known, but I love the fact that she's just someone who isn't an academic. She's got much more of a people-focused thing. So I try and it's not just ticking all the diversity boxes, because the other thing is you can get to the point, you would have seen this in corporate land, it's almost like when you see an advertising campaign, you're like, they have literally tried to tick every box in one photo on that billboard, and it almost feels contrived. Like,
ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to be vulnerable with you. I had a guy, I don't know him, and he listens to this, and I've told this story before, and he picked me up on it and said, is that me? I went, yes, it is, chap. So I won't say his name, but he got me to come and watch him do a presentation, large mixed group, and at the start he said, I'd like to be vulnerable with you. And I'm at the back going, I'd like to kick you in your balls. No, you don't say I'm going to, you show vulnerability. You be vulnerable. Oh, dear, it was a car crash.
Yeah. And so I think you've got to obviously lead with as many diverse voices as you can. So I think quotes with that sort of as a caveat to have with using quotes. But going back to the original theme, so the transition is going from I've introduced an idea, now it's a quote. I'm going to go from a quote to an application. So it'll be often a case study or a business. And so it's those transitions. That's where I've got to know exactly where I'm going, because the last thing you want to do, and you see presenters do this, and I've done it myself, we've all done it, the moment you're like, okay, I'm here, I've made this point, I'm not quite sure where I'm going next.
Press the next slide deck.
Yeah. And what happens typically is you retreat into yourself. And you can see people, they've gone back into their brain thinking, what's next? You've lost a connection then with the audience.
So you spend a lot of time on that transition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I'll script. Often I'll script the transitions. And a big part of my prep is to the wall. My office, my study wall, I speak to it. So if I've got something coming up, but it's a new piece of content. So showcases. So showcases, for those who aren't in the professional speaking world, are the most terrifying things you will ever do. Do you find the same?
Yeah, I do. Although I've shifted, because if I look at, and it's so loving, that's what I love about a podcast, because you get to catch up with good corporate buddies, prepare content, and then it helps you make meaning. So if I look at those four, physiology, well, if I can't control physiology, I'm full of shit, right? So my job as a mental skills coach, physiology and psychology. Skills and ability, I've worked on, context specific with multiple areas. Number 2 for me was belief systems without even knowing this framework, because I used to think a showcase, I'm being judged. The bureaus, the PCOs, preferred conference organisers. So 2 main ways to get booked as a professional speaker, ladies and gents. One is direct. Someone from a bank, a consulting firm, a telco, sees Michael, gets his book and says, hey, we've got an offsite coming up with the executive team. Can you speak? Second way is they'll go to a bureau, or for big events, a PCO, where they put together a monster event, and then they say, we want a speaker on sales, we want someone on performance and well-being, someone on generational shifts, and then they come to you.
That's right.
I prefer the direct stuff.
Yeah, right.
We'll come back to that. Most of mine is direct. Where my nerves came from when it was a showcase, I would think everyone in here is from a bureau or a PCO, and it was should. Shoulding is one of the automatic negative thoughts I teach my footballers. I should have done this, I should have done that, I could, I would, and you end up shoulding all over yourself, and it's really, really messy. So I used to should all over myself thinking, the bureau's not going to book me, or the PCO's not going to book me. Reason why, when I pulled on that thread schema, I was a personal trainer for a woman that you and I know really well. Hello, Kristy. And I trained Leanne as a PT, and then Leanne got me a booking, and I spoke, and I wasn't ready. And she kept saying to me, Andy, you're not ready. I said, I am Leanne. Like I've seen Dougie Maloof, and I reckon I lost bookings for years because of that. Wow. So when I dug into it, the showcases, I was really nervous because I had a bad experience when I was 26, 27. So I've unpacked it recently.
Well, I think so. The ideal showcase is the one that you get at the last moment, if you're prepared. So that's the caveat, if you're prepared. Because I had one a few years ago where, in fact, I think it was a showcase that Leanne was organising in Brisbane, and a speaker pulled out at the last minute. And so I wasn't meant to be on this showcase because I'd just flown in from Fiji the day before. I had to go to Gold Coast the next day. I was just flying in through Brisbane. And she said, can you possibly do this one before you drive down to the Gold Coast for the next event? So I went to this showcase, and it was proper chilled out entertainer vibe. I'm like, I'll give it a go, nothing to lose. And that was the best showcase I've ever had. So in terms of bookings and all the rest of it. But showcases to me, it's an opportunity to really get nervous for those, because they do bring out the gold. Often, because you've only got 15 minutes, so it's all the things about showcases. You've got a short amount of time.
So much harder.
Correct.
Like this smaller brief, it's so much harder than a day.
Well, you've got short time, and you've got to try and tick all the boxes. So, in the room, you've got all these people from different industries. You want to try and flag that you've worked with this industry and that one and this one. So they're like, I can see where this person fits into what we do. Or, you want to be funny and instinctive, and you want to be like really profound, and you want to be practical, and all the things in 15 minutes. If you wouldn't mind. And so it is a really intense thing. So showcases, my prep content-wise for that's to the wall. That is to my study wall. So I had one late last year, all around the new content from the new book. And that's terrifying. It's like the new album being bought out by someone who's had, 8 smash hit albums. It's like the pressure on that album is big. And so releasing a new book and a brand new piece of content, there's a weightiness to that. Like, this has got to be good. Because people expect, if they're going to pay high fees, they're going to expect it to be bloody great. But it's new, it's stuff I've never delivered before. So that pressure I definitely felt. So that 15-minute showcase I did late last year on the new content, I would have delivered that out loud to the wall 15, 16, 17 times, probably 200 hours worth of prep, just time and time again.
How many hours worth of prep? Just so
I would say, let me think about that, because it would be hundreds, over 150, maybe 200 hours over the course of a few weeks. Hours and hours and hours and hours.
This is gold, because people watch someone like you speak and go, he nailed it. He's lucky. He's talented. He's gifted. So you did a 15-minute presentation. How long have you been speaking?
So this will be 20 years this year.
20 years?
Yeah.
How many presentations do you do in an average year?
140, I'd say. 130, something like that.
So you've done over 2,000 presentations.
Yeah, actually, I've got I love numbers. So I've got 3,600 presentations, I think it has been over the 20 years.
You've done 3,600 presentations in 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I was your coach and we started with the beginner's mind, the beautiful Shoshin, Buddhist word, beginner's mind, and you rocked up and said, Maisie, I got this 15-minute presentation, champ. I've done 3,600 presentations in the last 20 years. I've written 10 books and I've got to do 15 minutes. I'm really nervous. You know what I would say? Confidence as a construct is 2 things, young man. Number 1, it's doing the work, and 2, it's backing yourself. Yeah. Go and be a slightly elevated version of you. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? If I'd said that to you before, would have you done anything differently? Or would you still, I know you'd do the same prep. Do you reckon you could have controlled the nerves, or is that something that keeps you alive? And I love that you still get nervous, because if you've been speaking for 20 years and you rock up and you take it for granted, your career's over. Yep. Yeah, and everyone else will end it for you.
Correct. Yeah. It's certainly the nervousness for me. It's not crippling nervousness. It's that heightened sense of intentionality. Like I really want to do justice to the content. And so when I say like 200 hours, we're talking in the months leading up to, I started working on the content for that showcase months in advance. And it's just talking out to the wall. Like in the week or so leading up to it, I did like days of presenting that content. Because what I find is that as I'm speaking to the wall and presenting the ideas and telling the stories, you'll make linkages you've never seen in your content before.
So all by yourself? Are you watching video back, listening?
No, just on my own.
Do you think you may have even crossed the line on doing too much? And this is probably a bias, N equals 1 for
I don't
me.
think so. Not with this content. There's probably a point where you can. Because what I like is when I get up on stage, if I'm well prepared, then I can rest into it. If you're well prepared. Whereas if you go in and you're sort of winging it, it's like the ideal mode, and you see this often with great performers, it can seem like it's off the cuff, but actually it's all of the work that's gone in to get them to the point.
Flow is that beautiful intersection between you being stretched and you've got the resources or skills to back it up. So when you speak and you're in flow, there's not a better moment. You're there and you're on stage, but you feel slightly elevated. You're one or two slides ahead. You're one or two stories ahead. And you can just pick stuff. Your memory works. There's a beautiful scene. The character Will Ferrell plays on Old School, and he does this presentation. He's taking away the Okinawa principle. Have you seen that? And he nails it at this, like it's Old School. He goes back as a mature age student, and he comes off stage and he goes up to his mates and goes, how'd I go?
Recent research has shown that empirical evidence for globalization of corporate innovation is very limited. And as a corollary, the market for technologies is shrinking. As a world leader, it's important for America to provide systematic research grants for our scientists. I believe strongly there will always be a need for us to have a well-articulated innovation policy with emphasis on human resource development. Thank you.
What happened? I blacked out.
Because his brain, and I get this off stage, if you ask me a question sometimes after I presented, I'm mush, but when you're in flow, your recall, your storytelling ability, your linkage, your whole awareness. So let's shift this naturally to that second part. When you're talking about this showcase, what did you do for state management? We'll talk about your brain. Did you do any journaling? Did you do any work on catching up with, hey, I've done this loads and loads of times? Or was it just prep?
So on the day, for me, energy management's a lot about on the day. So when I get to the venue, that's how I shift into that mode. So as soon as I get there, it's meeting as many people face to face as I can, meeting the AV team, getting to know their names, meeting a couple of delegates over the lunch break. Not too many, because otherwise, unless you're massively extroverted, that'll drain you. But I need to meet enough people so that it feels like the conversational mode's already started, because then when you get up on stage, it is like having a conversation. So I think that's really important. I try and get there. The worst thing for me is if I get to a venue and they stick me in a green room at the side and I meet nobody.
That's horrible, isn't it?
And then I have to get on stage.
Pacing,
like you haven't got a feel for the group or the room. So in that instance, I got there early enough to be able to listen to a couple of speakers before me, meet a couple of people, get a feel for how the day had gone, how people were traveling, what was the vibe of the group. So that really helps. Also meeting the AV team also really helps, because it gives you that sense of confidence that everything's sorted. And once all the AV is sorted, that's another thing you can just remove mentally off the list of things that
what we
make
call
you
this in
nervous.
sport, what you're doing? It's a pre-performance routine.
Yeah, right.
And a pre-performance routine I'll divide into 3 areas. There's the day before or the night of. There's the morning of, assuming it's an afternoon or an evening game. So it's waking up, physiology, going for a walk, getting some sunshine, not being on your mobile phone, not getting distracted, but not heavy exercise, just waking the body up. And then it's shutting down. So you got a keynote, let's say it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, the dreaded spot where the AV team will say, oh, Michael, we want you to come and do this global showcase. You're going to be in a different time zone. Pregnant pause. Do you do 3 p.m? Because you know that's when a lot of people are crashing. If you're speaking at 3 p.m, what do you do before that so your energy, your physiology is on when you come on at 3 p.m?
Question. So I had one of these just late last year. So it had been at the end of, I think I'd had 5 events that week. And it was the last one of the week. It was a Friday afternoon in Brisbane. I'd flown up that morning. The flight was delayed. There were just a whole lot of things. By the time I'd gotten there at like 12:30, I felt like I'd done an entire day already. That sort of feeling. And I got there, I'm like, I feel emotionally drained. I'm pretty zapped right now. And so I'm like, I had about an hour before I had to start. I thought what I actually need to do is get out, go grab a coffee and just sit and have silence. Go over my notes, get my head into gear, then go back in, then have the 20 minutes of whipping around and meeting the people and getting a feel for it, and then jumping on stage. So to me, it's a bit of a balance. One of the things I will rarely do before an event, particularly when you fly in the night before, and I'll say, we're having the welcome function, the drinks out on the lawn around the pool or whatever. Do you want to come and join? I'll always find a convenient excuse not to go. Because I'm extroverted.
I've got a really bad rash and I'm contagious and whiz. I don't know what it is. I have
right. Like anything will do.
I get that. I love people, but I find the night before if you've gone there and you've had alcohol. So now I don't drink the night before a big keynote.
Yep.
I really do treat it like an event, like it's sport. So I have the whole night before, get to bed, all your notes are ready. Never prepare your notes the morning of. You train energy. Wake up, connect with family if you're traveling, which a lot of our work is. Go for a walk or a light weights or a swim, have a coffee. So it's a nice, relaxing morning. And then so you turn up and you're in a good state.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I find that really helps. Because the other thing I find vocally is if I go to that welcome function, I don't know what it is about, and I think it's blokes' voices generally. So because of the range most blokes' voices are at, unless you've got a really bassy voice, it's a resonance that doesn't get cut through in loud rooms. So I can feel like I'm shouting, and the other person's like, sorry, I can't hear you. And it's honestly one of the most exhausting environments for me. So it's exhausting mentally and emotionally, but for my voice as well. So I just don't go to them for that very reason. So I'm super happy with my own time, my own space and silence. And I spend a lot of time in hotel rooms just in silence. I don't listen to stuff. I don't turn the TV on. I'm very happy in that mode. So that works for me. And that tends to be when I do, often like I'll have the night before, I'll also do one or two more run throughs of certain key parts of the presentation that might be new or fresh to the wall in the hotel room. All that stuff of just really condensing it down. The number of times I'll say something and I'll go, oh gosh, I hadn't even thought of that way of using language. Or maybe there was some alliteration I hadn't considered before, but I can read my notes over and over again, but when I say it out loud, that's when you hear those things. That's when the connections come together. So often I'll have the night before a bit of that, speaking out to the wall, and I go, that was great. I didn't even think of that before. And because you don't want to have those things after you get off stage and you've missed the moment. You want to have them the night before.
And for people listening, no matter what level, introduction, workshop level or keynote level, this is so important. I don't think I really started applying what I've done in sport, one as an athlete, then as a coach, now in mental skills. I don't think I really started doing this until I'd say my early 40s. So I'd been speaking for a decade and I was making some of the fundamental mistakes on physiology, psychology, not controlling state. I've adapted principles from the military, and we use this for every online presentation with Stride Stronger. I use it for every presentation I do. It's a refocus, and the refocus can 2 or 3 minutes just before you go on stage, but you've got a whole process on that. Yeah. And so if you're presenting, if it's a meeting, it's not a big presentation with big rooms and interpreters, but just before you step on stage, just get clarity. Number one, what's the context? Who's in the room today? Number two, what does success look like in that? And number three, what are the main messages I'm going to deliver? And just that simple context will give you clarity. And I learned this from the military and also sport. It's called a debrief. You get off stage. What worked, what didn't, what can I do better next time? And then down regulate or recharge. So it's just the refocus, the replay, what worked, what didn't, what can I do better next time? And like in tennis, they'll bounce the balls in between sets. Then you have that recharge. So I find that works really well when you're helping people to start presenting, just having a bit of a frame.
And in terms of memorizing stuff, to help that process, memorize the first 30 seconds. I have that really down pat. I have a series of phrases or things I'll do at the beginning of, honestly, 90% of my presentations. So typically it'll be something like, thank you so much for, and I'll name the 2 or 3 people that have invited me to be here. I'll thank the MC who's introduced me. Thanks to Peter and Carly and Rachel for the invite. Great to be able to spend some time with you today. Look, I've only got a really short space of time together. We're going to dive straight in, and I'll even do the click. It's amazing how everyone goes, oh, this person has got a plan.
Practice this in the room? So do you know?
No, this is probably not so much now, but there would have been.
Memory.
Yeah, it's muscle memory. Yeah. And then I'll go into a few things. I'll often start off with a little bit of fun. So I'll say, show of hands, how many of you have ever endured a boring or irrelevant presentation? And there's always most of us have. And then I'll say, okay, second question, how many of you were the one delivering that boring or irrelevant presentation? And there's always 20%. It's a laugh. And now I'm an ally. We're all on the same page. We've all sat through boring presentations, and this ain't going to be it. we're going to have some fun today. We're going to move fast. And like it just, when they've sat through a whole lot of presentations that are the same cadence throughout the day, that's different. It's fresh and it's conversational. It's not rah-rah. It's fun.
It's also self-deprecating. You're taking the piss out of yourself a little bit. And this works globally to Dougie Malouf, God bless him. Yeah, make other people the hero. Make the message the hero. Don't be the hero.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So those things, I think memorizing that, having a clear sense of those opening remarks, because the first 10 to 15 seconds, what are people desperately hoping for in a speaker? Can I rest and listen? Am I going to be nervous, anxious? There's nothing worse than as an audience member sitting there going, oh, gosh, this person's bombing. That's stressful for everyone. And it's helpful, I think, to remember is when you're stepping on stage, everyone wants you to win. Because if you do great, they enjoy the process. If it's awkward for the speaker, it's awkward for the audience, it's going to be a long 30 or 40 minutes.
This is one of many open loops I want to call back on. That's beautiful. When you shift your whole mindset and intent, you said that word very clearly at the start, it's intentional. That I'm here to serve, I'm here to deliver a message. It's not about me, it's about them. It's great knowing that the audience wants me to succeed. The audience wants me to survive. They don't want to see a trapdoor and I explode, because then they're going, here's 1 hour of my life I'll never get.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, exactly that. So they want you to do well. And I think that that shifts the whole tone. It's not about winning favor now. Do they like me? Am I cool enough? It's like, I'm going to stand here with confidence and certainty. And that's going to set the audience at ease. I think that's one of the most important things you can do.
One more on the physical side of voice. Have you had voice lessons, Michael?
A little bit, yeah. So a little bit over the years. I'll do vocal warm-ups, or not most days. I'd say no, most days, not all. There are times where vocal warm-ups are difficult. So if I get straight off a plane, into a car, back at the convention centre, straight on stage, it's often there's no way to do it. So I do the whole pinch your cheeks and with every run of that, you can get higher and lower, higher and lower.
Just give me an example.
So to be, sometimes if I'm tired, I'll notice I can't get high. That's when I realize my voice is not ready yet. So I'll just literally just breathe deeply and then do that again a couple more times. Warm tea, not milky if you can, if you're feeling your voice is a bit sketchy. So like peppermint tea, I always find to go. I always have peppermint tea in my bag because they often don't have it. Like
I have peppermint and licorice. This is funny.
Yeah. So that helps. And that just gets your voice sort of warmed up, but also physicality. So what happens as you're doing that, your neck elongates as well. So physicality also gets warmed up and sort of limbered.
Can I just step out of the conversation for a moment? Wiz, I'll draw on you. How much work does this guy do behind the scenes before a 1 hour presentation? It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, I've been trying to count and I've lost count.
You've lost count.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to get you in. Yeah. And you've already delivered, so you can get out of here now. Let's have we ever finished a podcast halfway during and just said, mic drop?
That'll do.
Not without technical issues.
Yeah, true. Good point. It's the work behind the scenes. It's the reps and sets that people do in a non-pressurized environment that allows you to step up in the moment. So I knew we'd have a good chat. Yeah. I just want to say thank you. And I said at the very start, I do really look at you as a role model, but you do more work than I even thought.
Yeah, right.
Oh, this is extreme preparation.
I don't do it every time. As in like I do the voiceover every time, but
but you've done
that's very kind.
Hundreds and thousands of reps and sets. So you can step into it and you can draw on it. But in the early days, you did a lot of this.
Yes.
So the point 100%. I want to draw, if you want to get good at speaking, it's not just the speaking.
Yeah. Yep.
You've got to do the work behind the scenes.
Yeah. And that's very kind. Thank you. And the other side of that is that there'll be times where the client says, just come and do your thing. Like they don't even want you to customize. Like
how good is that? When
it's unbelievable.
Does that happen to you more now? Obviously more now than when you first started because they know you have a brand.
A little bit. Yeah. So it is. You go through this transition where initially it's all about your content. They don't really care who you are, what your credibility is. Like, is the content going to be valuable? Then it's a bit of a mixture of the two. They want you as the presenter, but also because your content's good. I think I'm just getting to a point, as in only the last probably 6 to 8 months, where people will say, "We want to book you. What would you like to speak about?" Or what are you working on at the moment? What's your research been? What's your latest book been? That's really new for me. I'm not used to that, but that's an interesting
I'm really
mode.
Exploring bondage at the moment and adult fetishes.
It'll work a treat. Can you imagine? But yeah, it is funny. Like that, it is a strange thing when you get to that point where they're like, we actually don't.
See the way you wrapped me up on that really quickly. It was very clever. That's all the media trading he's done there as well, isn't it? Don't answer, don't play that. So it's what you're doing within scope with your work, which
so
is saying
nice.
that, hey, we trust you, we respect you, we work with you, turn up. But it's taken you decades to get to that.
Correct. Yeah, so it takes a while.
Preparing your props. So you've done content and stories. You're always working on it. And even a presentation you've done, you said you'll have the deck 60 to 80% and you'll drop in specifics. The body, there's some great examples there. Your brain is always working. So props, slides, because this is where people get unstuck. They do the slides straight away. For a lot of people, PowerPoint, they go and do a PowerPoint deck and then they're racing through the slides. So can you talk to me how you go about putting a presentation together, a new presentation with slides?
So I would look at, for instance, how frequently do I have things that break up the energy? So if I've got, let's say, a case study and then a story and then a quote, like that's too many things together that are all voice-driven, one-dimensional, me presenting content. So I'm like, okay, what do I want to sandwich in there that's going to lift the energy? It might be a joke. It might be a turn to the person next to you. It might be just something that makes, it might be a short video clip that makes the point. But sometimes, I mean, every now and again, it can't be gratuitous, but a video that, like it's mostly connected to the idea, but also it's just a bit of fun, bit of spice, just adds that energy and levity to the session. So to me, that's when I'm doing the debriefs, particularly with really new content. I'm going over and looking for the energy spikes. When do people laugh? When do people lean in? When do they take photos of the slides? I know Leanne Kristy's done this recently. She started, when she listens to new speakers she's working with, she's got a series of graphs, like it's basically 2 axes, and they're tracking things like laughs, the moment the audience sort of has that knowing nod or the elbow to the person next to them when they take photos of slides, because you can then track just with a simple line graph, when's it rich? When are people really engaging? Because if you've got sections where it's not there and it's all a bit monotonous, you got to spice that up, because the moment they switch off, first thing they do, grab out their phone and they're checking out the news. They're looking at their email. Once they're down that rabbit hole, it's hard to get them back. They might come back to listening, but their attention's split because they started reading something on their phone. And like you are ideally, the phone switched on, engaged with the world outside the room is the enemy. Because
I get them to put it away sometimes. If I've got a presentation, especially now I'm talking a lot about focus, because focus is a muscle. The opposite of focus is distraction. So I'll say, who here in the room would like more focus? And make a bit of a joke like you've done. Well, let's run an experiment. Can I get everyone, if there's tables, can I get you to pull your mobile phone out of your pocket? Can you give it a kiss? Tell them you're going to be back. You're not seeing anybody else. Have a bit of fun with it. I love you. I'll be back. Now put it in the middle of the table. We call it a parking lot. And you can see people are laughing most, and some people are looking at you going, you're a wanker, mate. This is the worst shit show I've ever done. And then I'll say, look, some of you right now are looking at me like you hate me. I totally get it. Just run with me. 15 or 20 minutes. I'll give you time to connect with your loved one and come back. And then so you frame it, have a bit of fun, come back at the end and go, right, who struggled with not having the mobile phone to start with? Most hands go up. Who found they leant in, listened more, learned more because you didn't have the distraction? Who reckons? So it can be a really good learning in that, but you got to frame it. I framed it one time, not like that. Was like, can everyone just turn their mobile phone off or put it onto silent?
That never works.
It was with Telstra. And I remember I was just before
clients.
David Thodey, who was the CEO at the time, and Stuart, who was running wholesale, stood up and went, right, no, look, Andrew, good intent, because I'd work with his team. But can you please turn your mobiles onto silent? Don't turn it off because it impacts revenue.
Yep.
So choose your audience, ladies and gents.
Choose your audience. Actually, on that note, you talk about like when is preparation not being done really work against you? One, for me, I was doing a session on momentum years ago for Optus. And it was all about personal momentum, them in their teams, all the rest of it. And so one of the key points in that is the power of saying no. So setting boundaries around what you invest energy and time and your emotions in, because that's often when we get distracted and all the rest of it. And so one of my key points was around the power of saying no. And I hadn't even thought about this till I'm standing on the platform, like their entire branding is yes. And so, because when I said it, I noticed a couple of awkward laughs. I'm like, what are they laughing at?
He hasn't read the brief.
Correct. But like if for that presentation, so that wasn't like a phone it in presentation, but it was one where I'd gone through, I'm like, I know that body content, no need to prepare that because or rehearse that, I know it well. If I'd spoken that out to the wall at home, I would have gone, oh, wait, I can't say that, because I bet there are those moments, those are the linkages you miss if you're underprepared. And they were fine. I mean, it's not like they have been forbidden from ever using the word no, like it's not like it's out of their lexicon, but it was just awkward because it was.
Did you make a joke of it at the time?
Well, no, because I didn't. It was only afterwards someone said something about the no. I'm like, oh, that's why they laughed. Oh my! Like It would have been a good joke. Like if I'd been prepared, but I mentally hadn't gone through that.
This is the same guy who rocked up to Nike and said, "Just don't." So we could talk about this for hours, and I want to move to some personal learnings and stories. On a slide deck for a 60-minute presentation, how many slides would you normally have?
This would probably surprise you. 115.
115.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe 100 to 115.
Yeah, so that's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah. Because it's mostly high-res images, I'm moving through them fast. And I also use blank slides between most of my slides. So half of those would be black slides with just my branding. Because you don't want to have the slide from the last bit of content you're talking about set up there when you've moved on to the new content. And then maybe nothing visually that's relevant for what you're talking about in that moment.
So you go visual or quote or video and then just logo blank screen. So we can halve, so about 60 slides you'll have in a 60-minute presentation, so almost one per minute. Yeah, I suppose if you're doing stories, quotes, I've seen you speak a number of times. I get to the end and go, oh, he's finished. Geez, that went quick. Because it is, it's a dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
but
it's a
it's not the
cadence to
dun
it.
dun 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 dun. It's a drop.
Yeah,
Up
yeah.
and drop. So interesting you're saying that cycle.
Yeah.
3 to 5 minutes you work on?
Yeah, to be about that. I'm finding probably with younger generations that needs to be shorter. Just attention spans. We're all getting worse, but I think certainly younger generations, that attention span thing is shorter. I've grown up on TikTok videos, like they're just shorter, like that soundbite of content. So, but still, I think there's value in having long form sessions. I'm still doing 60-minute sessions on average, but it means you need to have a lot more spice throughout just to keep it moving.
So keep it moving. Let's get to point 3. Tips and tricks and tools of the trade learned over 20 years and over 3,600 presentations. God, that's a lot of presentations.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Have you bombed or had a presentation where you've just looked back and go, oh, shit, if I could do that again, I would do it very differently?
I don't know about bombed. I've had presentations where things have gone wrong, like where things I misread the room or was given a bad brief. The tricky ones are when the client is maybe the executive and they've given you the brief of what they want to cover, but actually it's what the audience, it's the opposite of what the audience wants to hear. You're like essentially you're pushing the barrow of the executive, and so that pits you against your audience. So suddenly you're walking like, what's going on? Everyone's really bristly with this content. It's like because you're actually not there to serve that audience, that client. That audience is not the client.
He's a spy.
That's tricky. So I've had those before. You're walking and go, I've walked straight into a tense situation, which is not of my making, and I didn't know, but I only heard one voice in the preparation for this, and that was the person who...
How did you shift, or did you shift that?
Good question. So I would have only had a few of those. In that moment, when you're in flight, there's not a great deal you can do. What I'll do is I'll try and soften my language and my tone. I'll just share things as if I'm presenting an idea or an option, and then leave it to them to feel like they can pick it up and run with that, as opposed to this is an agenda and a message. And because there is something about that forceful language that if it's forceful in a way that the audience are going to find confronting, they get defensive, they become stubborn, they dig their heels, and all the things that you just don't want to do. So the more you can be somewhat neutral, you're the messenger. I think that sometimes diffuses that. So if you sense that in the room, sometimes you honestly don't know why there's defensiveness. Sometimes you walk into a room, I had one last year.
It could be a restructure, it could be economic conditions.
Yeah.
It's often external, or more often than not, it is external.
Yeah, it is that. There's also those audiences you walk in, there's a vibe here, which is just weird. And you're like, I don't know what it is. I can't change it in 45 to 60 minutes in a keynote.
Will you call that when you feel it? Or?
No. Only because typically the cause of that will be in the room.
Okay.
Like it's normally...
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we found the problem. It's your organisation
right.
chart. It's those 10 up the top.
Correct.
Where are they? Let's stand up.
Well, it's like, if there's that toxic sense or fear. When you sometimes have clients there's that fear.
No psychological safety.
Like everyone's terrified of stuffing up. And the person they're terrified of is probably in the room. And so you just want to obviously tread sensitively and carefully. But yeah, those are the things that are tricky. I did have one event last year over in Orlando, the American Hospitals Association, big event. Great client. We've done an AV check. In that instance, I've struggled with this sometimes to run off my own computer or give the slide deck to the AV team. Because the AV team
PowerPoint?
Well, yeah. So I've always used PowerPoint, but I have this. I like running it on my machine because at least I know that all of the fonts are going to work, all of the animations are going to work. Sometimes you transfer it on a USB. And if they haven't updated their operating system, like one of my standard fonts is Montserrat. That's one of my standard, all my PowerPoint slides have that. But Montserrat on a PC that's not been updated is an entirely different font. So you'll load the slide deck and all of the stuff you've spent a lot of time making the line alignments of text on your screens all gets messed up. And so you're often
presenting and then you got a nervous twitch.
You just get up there and sometimes like the text then is suddenly almost off the screen or it's over the image and it just looks unprofessional. And in that moment, no one's thinking, oh, I wonder why the AV team, their software's not up to date. They're thinking, why is this speaker producing stuff that doesn't match the vibe? Like it's off brand. If it just looks like you haven't cared. So things like that, the number of times I'd hand over the slide deck and then it would be like all of that would all get messed up. And then that frantic 7 minutes before you go on stage, you're trying to reformat and change font sizes. So I then moved toward having my own laptop on the stage, but then that's tricky because of connections and all the rest of it. So this event in America was interesting.
And also if it's speaker after speaker after speaker, it's actually nice to know you get up, speaker 4, big day, your slides are ready to go as long as you've got it all lined up. Yeah.
So this one in the States, I had, I'd given them the slide deck, the font's all messed up, and I'm like, you know what, pick your battles. It doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter too much. It looks a bit ugly, but only I know what it should look like, so that's fine. But they also put my laptop up on the screen as a backup. So I get up on stage, we've tested everything, it's all good to go, and we get up there and their computer freezes. And then my computer, they go to swap the things and the cable is buggered up. And so then I'm on the stage and I've got 3 AV people sitting next to me fiddling with things.
How big was the audience?
1,600, like it was quite large. And so honestly, and there's a whole thing of, at the beginning of most of my slide decks, there's that high energy, fast paced, that sense of momentum. We're moving here, it's going to be fun, it's going to be interactive. And a lot of that is about key images, slides, activities, things that's very, very image driven. Like it's the punchline will be a slide that pops up and that's the laugh. And so I'm like, okay, I haven't got slides right now. I've just got a blank screen behind me. My first 16 minutes of this 50-minute keynote is very slide driven. Do I, with nothing behind me, just go off script and or is it going to come on in 20 seconds? And then I can regain my moment. Like that was a really tricky one. I didn't have slides for 25 minutes of the whole presentation. It was a mess.
Really?
I think it was a mess. I mean, the client, that was the other thing because I owned it. I said, this is awkward. We're talking about AI and the future of technology. We can't even get the slides to work. And not making an enemy of the AV or pointing them out as an idiot, like just we can't. Like isn't this hilarious? And it's just emblematic of how so much of society is. In some ways, we're way ahead. Other ways, life is still clunky and awkward, even in technology. And so that made everyone an ally. And it was interesting how the number of people said how you responded in that moment spoke far more loudly than what your content was.
I was going to ask, can I ask, did you enjoy that presentation more or did you feel like you connected with the audience more?
No, neither. No, because I was out of flow state. I was in my head trying to edit my presentation. So I was going through doing well. I was like grasping at what can I throw in here? What'll be useful? Maybe I'm going to have the whole presentation without slides. And if that's the case, how does that change? So thinking on the fly in that moment meant that all the stuff I'd worked really hard to present that I knew would be super relevant because this was a medical crowd, especially all about technology.
Yeah, it's tech and AI, so it's a different
so I'm showing them videos of robots in surgical wards and like stuff that I knew they would find really interesting and valuable.
Like a robot, do some dad jokes.
I could have tried this thing afterwards if I'd known. I would have approached it so differently, but you don't know till you get up there and everything dies.
Next time, if that happens, you'll know what to do. Bit over 10 years ago, I was at the old Parliament House, which is a beautiful place to present. Yep. And it was a afternoon, it was a big government agency. And 350, 400 people, and I was speaking last. And just before we went on, the data projector blew. And then there was a surge in power and they couldn't fix it because the whole room had lost power supply. So there were 3 speakers. The guy at the start was more government and he did it okay, a bit boring. The lady before me was talking about stress and, adapting to situations. Yep. And I thought,
what a gift.
This is awesome. This is your gift.
Yeah.
Like you can go, whoa, hey, talk about adapting. I had a wonderful deck. I had all these slides, I had everything prepared. Everyone just, let's stand up, take a big breath in because when the shit hits the fan, you've got to reset and let's go again. But she didn't do that, and I felt for her. And like you said before, the audience was wanting her to win. Yeah. It was horrible. Yeah. She kept apologising. She kept saying, I had a slide here for this. I don't. And she was checking her laptop. It was a car crash. It was awful. Awful. And I really felt for her. I could see when she came off stage, she looked deflated.
I bet.
Like deflated.
And exhausted and all the rest.
And all that. And then old numbnuts me rocks up, and I had the time to then prepare, but I actually like going off script. Wiz, you know this. We prepare stuff, and it's like, what's he doing now? And I think it helped me massively on this day because I just got a flip chart and said, look, I had all these beautiful slides, and I did a reset because I said, like, I remember her name was Claire. I said, Claire, I feel like you had all these beautiful preps. So can we all just take a big breath in? And then there's that Hebrew proverb, this too shall pass, we'll get technology. So I just did a reset, which was as much for Claire and me and everyone. And then I just used a flip chart. It was one of the best presentations I've done because I spoke and I had some stories, but I knew the content really well. What I now do for not all of my presentations, but some, I'll just think sometimes, what if it blows up, and I'll write on a sheet of paper. And it's also a good way for my confidence and memory recall. What are the key messages on this? And then I'll just do it's a bit of a mind map. So if you see my notes, I'll do a mind map, like introduction, story. It's exactly your running sheet, but on a page. And I've had it happen to me again. And I felt really excited about it. Okay, look, I was excited because there's no slides. So that's helped me massively. So learning for people listening to this, it's pretty rare that that's going to happen. You know, after 3,600 presentations, it's happened to you once. But I think getting off leaning on your slides and thinking, how would I tell a story? How would I bring the audience in? I found it's given the speaking I do a bit of a different edge, like bring in a coaching session, bring the audience in, just makes it more alive.
Yeah. I think the other really big bomb session I had was in at the Four Seasons here in the city. And it was I don't know what it was. It's one of these industry associations. They've all got acronyms. It was an acronym. It was that insurance brokers something. And this was about 12, 13 years ago. And so I was the dinner keynote. Firstly, figure out if you're a dinner keynote speaker or not. And I don't know that I am. I sometimes
rock
do it.
Rock star, elite athlete, comedian. Otherwise, don't do it.
Don't do it. So for whatever reason, they wanted me to do a 40-minute session during the dinner.
In between main and entree.
Yeah, shocker. So, and this was about 400 people, and it was a hot afternoon in summer, and these were all brokers who'd come in. This was like a fancy treat for them, like essentially all expenses paid, grog and food, and they went to town. So they'd started drinking at 4, maybe 4:30. Doors opened at 6 or 6:30. They were plastered. And so then doors open. And so Cal Wilson, bless her heart, was the MC. And so you can imagine she has just done every event. You know, stand-up comedian, she had done the whole lot. And so she couldn't get them. She couldn't get them to stop long enough to just like, welcome to the thing, you know, thanks to the organisers. We're going to have some awards tonight. She did a couple of great jokes, but like people just, it was almost like when you're in a room, it's shouting. And like maybe it would dip a tiny bit, but not much. Like the people are shouting across the tables, they're all just smashed. So she's just like fighting through to the point where she started walking around the room trying to like, you know, this table over here, what are you guys up to? Trying to engage the group, thinking all the tricks to try and get the audience, and she just couldn't get them. And then it's my turn to get up and speak. I'm like, what are we going to do? So
pause.
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking? If you're there watching Cal Wilson, who one of Australia's funniest comedians, Cal can't get them, you would have absolutely been redlining, or did you chill? What'd you do?
I think I wondered if after they'd had entrees, maybe if she at least created the platform, is if we can get them to just stop for a second and be quiet, then that gives me a chance to win them. And if they're interested, and it was deliberately a fun, fast-paced session. It wasn't like get out your notes and take notes or anything. It was very, very practical. If it wasn't very practical, it was more just fun and entertaining. So I thought if I can just get them, if she can quieten them down, but she couldn't. And so I'm like, walk up on stage, there's this wall of shouting in the room. And so I just pressed on.
I feel anxious just listening to you.
Shocker. So, but you try all the things. So, and all the things are silence. If I stand here quietly long enough, they'll recognize to stop. Didn't work. Yeah, started the whole like pleading. Okay, I really need your help right now. If you could just help, like, they couldn't even hear to like, there was just no ability to get this group at all. So I just plowed on with some content. It was comical. It was just ludicrous. And at the afterwards, so Cal and I went next door to the bar at this thing, and we just polished off a bottle of red wine just to commiserate. And she's like, I remember her saying, that was the hardest gig I've ever done. And it was just full on. So you have those ones. And I did, instead of a 50-minute, it was meant to be a 30 to 40-minute keynote. I did 15 minutes. I'm like, this is not serving anyone. Yeah. I'm done. And the client was fine with that. Now, like, it was just a mess.
So you put that into context. So the worst one that I've done, and it is the worst, and if anyone's listening to this who was in that presentation, I apologise. This is over 20 years ago. So I was late 20-something, 23 years ago. I was at Filex, the annual fitness conference. Yeah. Have you spoken at Filex?
Yes, years ago, yep.
And it was one of the breakout sessions, about 300 plus people. I was in Tasmania as an athlete, and I was an assistant coach at the Institute of Sport as well, and I was doing a session on periodisation. Right. What do you think I thought as a young, 26, 27? How do you think I approached it?
I imagine it's like trying to be cool and win the crowd, like
trying
your peers.
To show my knowledge, my expertise, which was my insecurity, and that drove the whole presentation. It was data, no story. So I started with 300 to 350 people. After about 10 minutes, 30 or 40 had left. 15 minutes, half the audience had left. So when you're here and you're nervous, and it was just slides, and I'm talking to the slides, it's everything now, MJ, I know, was just horrible. And then in the end...
You literally lost your audience.
More than. It would have been 3/4 had left.
Wow.
I just said, hey, I've bombed. Feels awful. Use it as your fuel. So I made a decision in that moment. That's when I reconnected with Dougie Malouf.
Yeah, wow.
And went back and started. Dougie said, young fella, speak for free for 10 years, 7 to 10 years, and then you can start speaking for a fee. Wow. I thought because I'm coaching and I'm working with the Tasmanian Institute of Sport and I'm training all these people that I earn this. It's my time. I hadn't earned it. I got schooled. It was the hardest but the best lesson I've had, because I never, ever, ever will have that happen to me again.
Yeah. One of the things you said before, so in Canberra, the woman before you got up afterwards and you acknowledged her and what she'd done and how hard, I think that's a good tip or a good trick. If you can get up and the opening part of your presentation, acknowledge what you appreciated about the person who spoke before you. Just acknowledge them, because it's amazing. It just shows that it's not all about you.
I did it as a caring human being, because I'd go there physiologically, like I'm feeling it, like Wizard's looking at me, like
it's a shocker.
It was horrible for her, horrible for the crowd. Yeah. So big learning on that, big learning. Hey, on the podcast called The You Project with our good buddy Harps, Craig Harper, hello Harps, you said, be cautious of getting in with speakers bureaus too early. Bureaus are working on behalf of a client. 60% of your work is through bureaus, so you do need to connect with them. They have thousands of speakers on their rosters, so how do you stand out? It is well worth looking at going exclusive with one bureau so they know you well and they're invested in you. Otherwise, you're one in a sea of speakers, but you can't go too early. I told you I needed you as a young fella. I was coaching Leanne. She was running ovations and I went too early. You need to deliver consistently on all your keynotes/presentations, build the trust and a clear message, then use a bureau to lift you to the next level.
I think that's what this... So
wise words from you, huh? You go, yeah, geez, I know my shit.
Sometimes you look back at stuff you said, I'm like, oh, that was good, wasn't it? There you go. Yeah, wow. But the whole going too early thing is massive. Like you don't want to go too early because the industry has a long memory. So do the work in obscurity. I mean, the whole public victories are preceded by thousands of private ones. Do the private victories. Do the audiences that no one sees. They're not glamorous, but it's where you're honing your skills.
Quoting Dougie Malouf again. Now, God, I will learn so much. Did you work with Doug? Did you have the opportunity? Because you came in that wave a bit after when I started.
Yes, a little bit. And just, what a legend.
Yeah, so he passed away a bit over a year, probably 18 months ago. God bless his soul. But Doug used to say, speak for free before you start speaking for a fee. Go to a wedding, a funeral, a bar mitzvah, a corporate organisation. And I know Pete Sheen did that. I know Matt Church. So many speakers were just moulded and had that gift of Doug Malouf.
Yeah. So I think certainly you don't want to go too early in that sense, but also once you're ready to go to bureaus, once you feel like you're ready, it's also how do you make it easy to sell you? And I think that's something I've tried to be really careful in doing. So I provide, when there's a new topic, for instance, I've got promo videos for the new topic. I've got articles, videos, stuff that I can just share with them so that when they're putting together a proposal, it's copy and paste. It's a whole lot of stuff that's useful for them that's got none of my brand on it. So it's unbranded, so it's what they call bureau friendly. So they can share it and it's just got their logo and their contact details. And then that it works a treat. They're partners in the process.
So do you do that every year? Do it like at the end of the year or early in the year? So you'd be doing that now, or you've done that with
I just
your
did that
book?
before Christmas, yeah. But and I tend to call them all. So because I work with all of the different bureau consultants, and that's the thing, it's the consultants, not the bureau. So if you like, let's say Saxons or ICMI, they're not like one group. Like they're all individual consultants with individual personalities and different industries they
so
specialise in.
Do you call everyone from Saxton that you work with?
Yeah.
Everyone from ICMI?
Yep.
Everyone from Claxton.
Yeah.
Everyone from SNI.
The whole deal.
The whole deal, yeah.
And it's worth it. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a couple of days of doing a few hours at a time. And then
how do you get all their lists? Like, how do you know who's working in the organisation?
Their websites typically have their list of consultants, but also I just have their phone numbers from working with them over the years and their contact. And that's the beauty of the time over distance thing, is that I know them and I know their kids and I know their stories, and it's much more of a friendship now than just a business transaction. That just takes time to build that up. But in terms of, going back to the question you asked ages ago, like, what are some tips and tricks along the way? Don't be a dick. I think is a really simple one. Like, you just be kind, be helpful if you can. If you working with AV teams, the number of times you see speakers go in and they're just difficult to work with. I'm like,
or we had a big event. It was last year at PwC. The Outside. It was the first year they did it.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you speak at that?
I did that last year.
You did last year.
Yeah.
We did the year before, and we actually helped them set up the framework.
Yeah. Wow. Yep.
And so I was there every week for 5 weeks, as you would have been.
Yeah.
Did you do a keynote or a breakout?
I did a breakout, yeah.
So I had the opening keynote with the wonderful Yemi Pen. And what I saw over that period of 5 weeks is a number of speakers that you and I are friends with didn't acknowledge the AV crew. And I'm just there going, one, you should have been brought up with better manners. Yeah. Two, what a stupid move, because you get on with the AV crew, and I've had this and I know you have. I rock up to a different hotel, a different event, and Carl goes, Andrew, we worked together on the CBA event with Matt Common a couple of years ago. Mate, thanks for the book. If I've got books there, which I'll always take, you would take your most recent book. I've got to catch up and start writing a bit more prolifically. I'll give the head AV or one of the AV crew a book.
Yeah, great.
And it just, especially if I've got a few, to say, hey, thank you, because we're a partner in this and we deliver really well. That's done wonders, because then you rock up and they look after you, and it's
like that.
It's common sense.
I don't give away. I generally don't give away books much, mainly because whenever I get given books, I rarely read them unless I bought them. They sit on my shelf as my intentional. So I actually very rarely give away books. I sometimes do, but
I do it to get my sales up.
That's also another way to do it.
We got 100,000 copies of Match, but I've given away 99,500. No, I'm joking.
But what I do with the AV crews, can I get you a coffee? Has someone got you some lunch? Because this AV crew, they start bumping in often the night before. They'll be there at 7 o'clock or 6:45 to get everything checked to go. And then sometimes, like the morning tea break, they're not going out to get a coffee or something to eat because they've got to AV check the next crew. And sometimes they get lunch, but often they'll just be there the entire day. So I'll just go, hey, can I get you guys something?
That's a great idea.
And 90% of the time they go, oh, we're all good. But I tell you what, the difference it makes, you just care enough to ask. And it's a genuine offer. I'm like, I'm going to get a coffee. Would you like one? And it's little things like that. And that doesn't really return anything to me tangibly, but I just feel like your reputation is so important in this industry. People talk, as you and I know, like the word gets around. And so whether it's the PCO you're dealing with, the AV team, the bureau, the clients, because the beauty of if you're not a dick, if you deal well with clients, the clients then move organizations. And so they may have used you 3 or 4 times there.
The best thing on LinkedIn, you see Claire has gone from CBA and she's gone across to Westpac, and little message, you're working at Westpac. Do you send a follow-up thank you or a gift to the client that books you?
I often think I should, but then I get busy and don't. So
We've started.
It's a really good idea.
Mate,
I ought to do it. Yeah.
It is. It's a conversation piece that Shannon runs it, and I'll call out to Shannon. She does an amazing job. Yeah. Depending on the event, we have a couple of different gifts, and I won't go into the mechanics of it too much, but I will honour Keith Abraham, because Keith talks about what do you do before, what do you do during, what do you do during after, and what do you do forever after. And I find, because I'm running a business and mental skills, and I've got 4 kids and rock up and do keynotes, I was doing the before well. I hope, and the feedback was I was doing the during well, but the after and forever after I was dropping. The forever after is your database and your clients and your that should take care of itself with good admin. But the after, we will now get back a fruit basket or some flowers or a product. Just to go back, Michael, I really appreciate the business. We've now been working together for X years. Just a bit of a personal story from Andrew and the team. And then when we do our briefing, so we'll go back to every client now and do a follow-up brief, make sure that they've got that. So if anyone's listening to this, and I've done that, it's purely done from the right reason, number one. But 2, from a relationship and a sales point of view, it's done wonders for extra bookings.
I love that. Yeah, I should do that. So shorter answer is no, longer answer is I should, and it's a great idea.
Well, you may not have done it because you're busy. MJ, busy doing 120. That's a lot of keynotes a year.
It is, yeah.
120 a year?
Yeah, most years would be about that. So, I mean, a normal week is three or four. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 a week. That's a lot. I find that hard. Mentally,
you
I find
are
that hard.
one of, or probably the most prolific keynote speaker, just to give it context for people not in the industry. I'll do 50 with everything else. So my sort of pass score is 50. That'll be about 40 to 42 keynotes or conference experiences. So we turn it from a keynote to, do you want fries with that? Learned this at McDonald's, seeing my brother who's down at Dolls Point. I say it was at Caringbah at the time. Took Archie and Mickey through McDonald's on the way home. I was just going to get a bag of apples and some sparkly water. I'm such a nerd, isn't it? And I found my kids go, Dad, it's McDonald's. You can't be healthy here. You're a loser of a father. And it was just going to be a quick snack. Yeah. $35 later, I'd ordered a chicken wrap. Archie had McNuggets and a family meal. And as I'm driving along, I just went, I just got upsold by some pimply, redheaded young school kid who's probably 15, who's been taught sales called the upsell. And that day, I went home and I wrote up, how do I get an upsell? So before in the briefing, can we build in a diagnostic that we charge for? Can we package books? So we've got our average spend. I won't give you the exact amount, but it's up about 3,000 to 4,000 per keynote because we're doing before and we're doing after as far as digital platform. So
that's probably the benefit of doing mostly direct work is you own the client relationship. So when I go through a bureau, I don't own the client relationship as much. Unless I get, say, their email or phone number on the day, I don't have that.
We do that with some bureaus. So it can complicate it. And I love bureaus because I wouldn't have a speaking business if it wasn't for the support I had for wonderful people like Deb Claxton, Leanne Kristy, Emma at Saxton, who've been supporting me for years and years. But I get that it's complex. There's lots of moving parts. Some bureaus, if the brief's right, we've built it in. So then everyone gets a little bit more as well. Yeah. But the reason you're so busy and you're not giving after gifts is you're writing books. 10 books in a period of 20 years is phenomenal. I really like this. It's a good book. When we were in the Gold Coast and I said, let's catch up and do the podcast, and you said, can I wait until after Christmas?
Yeah.
Because I've got the new book. I said, mate, makes sense. I said, tell me about the book. Do you remember what happened?
No, what happened?
I remember because it was something I haven't seen in you a lot. You lit up.
Yeah, cool.
You stopped and you smiled.
Yeah.
And you said, I'm really proud of this book.
Yeah, cool. And I am. This one's been the hardest book by far to write. In terms of you talk about work that no one sees, the behind the scenes stuff. This has been almost 10 years of work. Lots of reading, lots of just chewing on ideas and doing a lot of the deep work around stuff that you want to bring to light that's fresh. So yes, and I thought I was onto something, but I wasn't sure. You're never quite sure whether you're onto something. And then I started sending the manuscript to all of the people that I'd referenced their research in the book, and I was nervous. I'm like, what if I send it to these people and they're like way off? These are all the heads of psychology at Yale and Cambridge.
Your quote on the front page is all right.
Yeah, no.
I must read if you want to make a greater impact. Some woman named Mel Robbins. And then some other guy, some Pink guy, I think he's only written about 10 bestsellers himself with his brother. Dan Pink has said a timely guide to restarting the lost art of civil disclosure. So restoring.
But it has been that was a really cool process. Just getting a lot of the people who I've looked up to for years and admired their work, and for them to read and go, this is a really fresh, significant, important, timely book, all that stuff. So that's what's exciting. I'm like, all this time and energy invested in this thing, and particularly during the COVID years, I really went deep in writing this book because I'd started to write this book 5 times. Maybe 6. So I'd start to write it, I'd start working on it, and then another book would crop up.
So we caught up in COVID. Must have been COVID 2020, one of the lockdowns opens up. It would have been 2021. Yeah. So we're talking 2.5, 3 years ago. Yeah. So I thought you were just starting then.
No, at that point I had a first draft. And at that point, the first draft was, get this, what was that, 306,000 words. It was a monster.
Okay. And tell everyone how many books you read, scanned, looked at.
Yeah, so the books, I must have done, I think I read about 125 books and scanned probably 1,200 articles, as in read, digested, referenced. Lots, heaps and heaps. So because this is a whole new area for me. I've spent so many years talking about where the world's heading from a technology perspective and the strategy required to stay ahead of change and all that stuff. This is the psychology side of why people don't change. Like, what's the whole nature of stubbornness? I'm like, if I'm going to go into the latest stuff around neuroscience and behavioral psychology, I can't just read 1 or 2 books and just piece a few things together. Like, this is important work. And
is it really new for you? So there's a concept in lag time. So there's a concept in coaching psychology called lag time.
Right. Yep.
How others see me is different to how I see myself.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I caught up with an athlete. I won't mention his name, but he's about to hit the stratosphere overseas, and a few things have happened over the weekend, and he was catching up with me, and I taught him this term, and I said, so now everyone sees you're ready for the global stage. Yeah. Do you see yourself? And he went, yeah, I do, man.
Wow.
But I feel nervous. I said, that's lag time. Yeah. So lag time is how everyone else sees you, and it sometimes takes time for you to catch up. Yeah. I've seen you doing this shoes for 10 years.
Yeah, wow. I hadn't heard that or thought about that before.
When we caught up, we used to catch up at KPMG. We used to have our little corporate dates
that's
on
right.
the water at Barangaroo. It was about every 6 or 12 months. And when you told me where you were evolving and where you were speaking, I just put you in this genre. So when I heard you say that it's a bit of a shift, and it was almost like you were asking for permission. Yeah? Yep. I reckon you've been doing it for, if not 10, 5.
Well, it's encouraging. And what's been great too, because I only came out in October here and then late November in the States. And so I've started the keynote off the back of this only late last year. So I've done the keynote, and that's when you talk about the hundreds of hours of prep. It's still like that keynote was all new. There was not like, pull this and this and tried and tested stories and jokes and like, no, it's like all new.
Like in a car, isn't it?
Oh my. Well, and it's to me, it's always a scary thing, because you're like, this is so new. What if it doesn't resonate with the market, or it just feels like too much of a gear shift in content, that people have got me in a certain box, and this is such a disruptive gear shift to how they see what I'm about, that essentially it kills my branding in its existing form, but also isn't relevant enough in its new form, and like you shoot yourself in the foot type thing. So the response has been super encouraging, and that's been the sort of feedback. Like, this just makes sense. It's a logical next step in the work you've been doing. I'm like, that's cool, because I wasn't sure that it would be such a natural evolution of content.
So when I say that to you, I've been seeing you, I think the audience has seen you doing this for 5 years.
Yeah.
And you go, what do you think? Like, have you caught up yet? Do you own this now? Do you feel like it? Or are you still growing into it? Like when one of your kids put your shoes on and goes, I'm wearing daddy's shoes, mummy's shoes. They don't fit, you idiot. You can't say that to your kid.
Yes, yeah.
Are you growing into the shoes still?
Yeah, probably, I would say only late last year. So, and it was getting the prep ready for podcasts. That was the thing that was a really important process and really hard. So taking a large manuscript and then trying to condense it down to sound bites that are simple without being simplistic, because they're complicated ideas and the science behind it's complicated, but you want to make it accessible. So that was a really important process. So talking to the wall, this is why I did so much that prep for this content, because I'm like, when I preparing that content, and then also not just the full keynote, but the showcase one, I'm taking really complicated things and making them super, super simple and accessible. That required the talking out, trying to chunk it down.
Was it Mark Twain who wrote a letter to his contemporaries? Sorry about the verbose letter. I didn't have time to make this succinct.
Yeah.
That is right. To get stuff sharp and punchy and really crystal clear can take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Well, it does. And I think what I did initially with this, so I did the first podcast interview I did on this was with Julie Masters. Do you know Julie?
Yeah, Jules. Isn't she living in Spain now?
She's in Spain now. I think, I don't know how long they're there for, but like an extended period of time. They're having fun, it looks like. But I did an interview with her, and I mean, she's so lovely, but her feedback afterwards was good, but you're sitting in the seat of reporter. You're reporting on other people's ideas and trying to be a faithful reporter of what's being said in this whole topic, but you're not the person you're not wearing it comfortably if you're the expert. You own this. So it's really good feedback.
It's that little tip. Tell you a little secret.
Yeah.
When we spoke in the Gold Coast and you said you're going to be doing podcast and talking late in the year or early in the year, I said let's go early in the year for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to freshen up. The second one is I thought you'd have a better message after you've done a few podcasts.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I'll know exactly the same on a concept. So now mental skills, lag time. People have seen me as a mental skills coach for years. Yeah. When I was a fitness trainer, I was always talking about mindset, and until Mark O'Neill, hello Mark, who's the football manager at Parramatta, he said to me, you're ready for this. And that's when I went for the interview at Para. So I had to catch up with that. But the first few presentations, podcast, you're getting your reps and sets in. So it takes time. 100%. Yeah. So I actually wanted to wait until you've done a few.
No, it is. It's a learning curve. And I feel like I'm getting there. There's still room to grow. This is a very new thing for me. Like this whole mode, like podcasting is a different, like I've got my oil plates on still. Maybe my P plates now, but like it's still very different.
It's different because you're not on stage as the talent. It's a conversation. Yeah. I've learned a lot. Wiz, do you remember the first few conversations I had at people? Do you remember when we first started doing this?
A few of them a little while ago.
Are they as bad as I think?
Probably not as bad as you think, but...
They're not great. Talking over, not having space. I think a conversation, you've got a great talent, a good mate like you, ask a few questions. Yeah. I want to give a bit of insight. I don't just want to be a talking head or a starfish podcaster, but it's a dialogue. So it is a shift from on stage.
Very different. Yep.
Yeah, just sink in, have a good conversation. Yeah. You gave so much great content on speaking, on what you do to get your stories and the whole mastery, on what we do about the physical and psychological prep, and then the tools and tricks of the trade. I've got a whole other section on the book, but I think two different areas. One is we're going to run out of time, but more so, can we come back? I'd like to do a separate podcast on the science of stubbornness.
Yeah, cool.
Because when I read the book, the thing that, and ladies and gents, I'm also doing this to allure you, go buy it. It's a bloody good book. So rather than talking about chapter 1, chapter 3, let's come back and we'll talk about the science of stubbornness.
Yeah, cool.
It's a refreshing approach on behaviour change, because I've heard a lot about the House of Change, and I've heard a lot with the Masters in Coaching Psychology. What are all the change frameworks? I haven't seen a book that digs into stubbornness like you do. So can you give us just a quick little frame to whet the appetite, and we'll come back and do another podcast?
I think that the big discovery that drove this book was this notion that for 300 or 400 years, we've been taught, consciously or unconsciously, the best way to change someone's mind is to give them a rock solid argument. And this idea that if you give someone evidence, if you give them a good reason to change their mind, they'll see reason, that humans are reasonable. And so therefore we do that constantly. We do that in terms of public education campaigns and trying to lead people. And the tricky thing is we've discovered not only is that not true, but the opposite is true. The harder you push, the more evidence you give, the more data you pile on, often the more stubborn people become. And so that's the hardest thing I find with leaders who are trying to get a change agenda through, is they're misdiagnosing the point of resistance. They think it's a knowledge gap. The reason people aren't seeing the light and coming on board with the change is because we haven't educated them enough yet. And that's not it at all. Correct. And so that's not it at all. It's often very different things that are causing them to dig their heels in. In fact, the great irony is often the things that people are most stubborn about, deep down they know are a good idea. They think there's value in it. But it's like unless they've arrived there on their own, or they feel they've got some sense of agency, or feel they can change their mind without having to admit they're an idiot. This is a hard thing. Ego is so involved in this. And so trying to give people space to change their mind without feeling shame or embarrassment is half the process. So a lot of it is about some of the what is it that causes people to get stuck, and then how do you help people move out of that position?
Yeah, well, you're open to coming back in a couple of months.
Yeah,
we'll get you to come back and we'll do it. Because it's a science, and I've never heard a position like that. Because we talk about the science of change.
Yeah.
And the science, we've got evolution, but you've got robust research and references. There's neuroscience, there's behavioural scientists, there's evolution, like with what happens with our default, primary function on the brain. Yeah, I just haven't seen that. So
cool.
Listening to this, and you love MJ, which everyone is, even if you don't present what you spoke about today, just go through and take out presenting and talk about communication. It's exactly the same. And I think if people can take a sliver of the dedication, the due diligence and the process you do to stepping up on stage, to the way they communicate, I think it's going to help people massively.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And what I would say is take out the word speaking also, because to me, you're just communicating with a group. Like I flinch at that idea of getting up to give a speech or even give a presentation. There's something so active and performative about that. To me, I'm getting on the stage and sharing some ideas and bring the audience on a journey, having some fun. Like that posture is the right posture to me. I think the moment it's a performance, people feel it, that fourth wall goes up. You hear about the fourth wall in the world of theatre. They're excluded. They're there to observe. It's a passive mode. And that's not an audience. You want to have it. There's no fourth wall. You're just having a conversation.
I like that. It's a slightly elevated version of yourself.
Correct, yeah.
Now, is there a question I haven't asked you that you'd like me to ask, or is there a question you'd like to flip and ask me?
Oh, it's a great question in itself. I think the big thing would be, we talked about the fact that money hasn't come up in the conversation. And I think that's probably something that's important to clarify. I'm very financially driven, very financially savvy.
Oh, you charge money, do you?
I do charge money. Would you believe?
We've been speaking for a whole amount of time about the fear of public speaking, the art of presenting, including how to prepare your content and stories, how to prepare your body and your brain, how to prepare your props. We've spoken about tips and tricks over the years, and we've spoken about your 10th book, The Power of... I haven't spoken about money.
It's good we haven't, because to me, I mean, the money is...
I consciously didn't want to talk about it.
It's great. So I think that's the thing we haven't talked about, which I'm glad we didn't. And it's worth clarifying why. That, I mean, it's a business, and I know my numbers. I'm very good with my numbers in business. So it's not that I'm oblivious to it.
He's doing okay, ladies and gents. You do the maths. 120 presentations, and you charge, and you should. You're up there in the Australian and global speakers. But interesting. It hasn't come into the conversation at all.
No. So I feel like if you're adding value and you're leading with integrity and you're just doing a bloody good job, the value, like, you will find your market and it'll pay you well. I mean, it's an amazing industry. It's a privilege to do what we do professionally. I still have moments where I'm like, I can't believe we get to do this. Like, it's quite crazy, really. But it is such a gift. It's such a privilege. I try and never forget that. But to me, it's about starting with what's going to be valuable and fresh and useful for an audience, doing it with excellence, rather than starting with, this is what I want to earn. How do I do that? What do I need to maneuver to make that happen?
You can feel that in the meeting. You can see that on the resources. And I think you can smell it when they get up on stage.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Here's what I've learned today. I was looking forward to this. I love all podcasts, but when I know someone like you, I was wanting to double click on where you come from. What's your drive? And I had an assumption, and you've confirmed it. You're very purpose driven.
Definitely.
So your purpose is to create great products and presentations and to make a real shift in people. Yep. Sometimes in this profession of speaking, coaching, mentoring, teaching, YouTubing, podcasting, influencing, thought leadership, it comes from a ego or it's a performance driven. Yep. And similar to what I talk about in sport, that can get you started. So if an athlete wants to make the team, the games, the Olympics, if it comes from about performing, in the first few years, it'll get you there. Yeah. But it's an unsustainable fuel source.
Yeah, correct.
Because when you're not performing, because you look in the mirror and your ego is inextricably linked with your performance, at some stage you will get dropped, not selected, not on the team, and then what happens? Yeah. So I can see for you, and purpose is 3 components. Number 1, purpose is not about you. Well, I made the mistake on stage at that fitness conference. It was about me, but I can see this is about others. 2, it's future focused. So you're seeing you're going somewhere with it. And 3, excites the living daylights out of you. So I can totally see you're on purpose.
It's great. Love it. Well, it's been great to chat. Thank you for making the time.
People who want to book you, read you, listen to you, or for executives who want to get you in to work with a small group of 8 or 10.
My sweet spot. Yeah, probably best place to connect. So LinkedIn, I'm pretty present on LinkedIn, so people can find me there, or the website is michaelmcqueen.net.
McQueen. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, that's it.
MJ, thanks, mate. Today's been a gift.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, mate.